The wind blew dust across the broken road, carrying the smell of rust, smoke, and old ashes. The once bright colony city now looked like a skeleton, its tall towers cracked, windows shattered, and signs half hanging from broken walls. No one smiled here anymore. Only silence and hunger walked in the streets. Through this forgotten road, an alien mother walked slowly, her thin arms wrapped around her small daughter. The child's head rested weakly on her shoulder, eyes half closed, lips dry and pale. The mother's feet dragged, her skin covered with dirt, her clothes torn by weeks of struggle. She once had family, a home, and a place to belong, but all had turned against her. Her people had whispered that she was a curse, a burden in hard times, so they abandoned her, leaving her with only her little girl. The road was long, the houses empty, the shops locked. She tried knocking on one broken door. "Please, just a little water," she begged. But the door slammed shut and angry voices shouted, "Go away. We don't feed the unwanted," her daughter coughed softly, her small hand clutching her mother's torn sleeve. The mother whispered, "Hold on, my child. I will find something," though she herself had not eaten in 2 days. At the corner of the road, she saw a pile of trash, broken crates and old food wrappers. She bent down, searching through the filth with desperate hands, her child's eyes filled with tears. "Mama, I'm hungry." The mother's heart broke like glass. She pulled out a half-rotten fruit, but even as she lifted it, a stone flew past her head. A group of rough colonists stood nearby, sneering. "Look at her, digging like an animal," one of them shouted. Another laughed. "She should just die and take her brat with her." The mother pulled her child close and ran, her bare feet cutting against the sharp stones. Her breath came heavy, her tears mixing with the dust on her face. She turned into a narrow alley. Hiding behind a broken wall, her child whimpered softly. "Mama, why do they hate us?" The mother had no answer, only silence, her arms shaking as she held her daughter tighter. The night was falling, the sun sinking behind black clouds. The forgotten road grew darker, the air colder. The mother knew they could not survive another night without food. As she stepped back onto the road, her legs weak, her daughter suddenly slipped from her arms and fell to the ground. The child's body trembled, her face pale, her voice too faint. "Mama!" The mother cried out in fear, kneeling beside her. "Stay with me, please. Stay awake," but the little girl could not even open her eyes. The mother looked around desperately, but no one came. No one ever came. Just when her heart was ready to break completely, she felt a shadow move nearby. Heavy footsteps echoed on the broken road, slow and steady. The mother looked up with fear. Was it another soldier? Another cruel face? Her eyes widened when she saw a human stranger standing a few steps away. He was tall, his clothes worn but strong, a bag slung over his shoulder. His face was marked by dust and hardship, yet his eyes carried something the mother had not seen in years. Kindness. The man looked at the trembling child on the ground, then at the mother who tried to shield her with weak arms. For a long moment he said nothing, only staring. The silence was heavy, the wind whistling through broken windows. The mother's voice cracked. "Please, don't hurt us, we have nothing." The man slowly reached into his bag, pulling out a small loaf of bread. Half wrapped in cloth, he bent down, holding it out. The child's nose twitched at the smell. Her tiny hand lifted weakly toward it. The mother hesitated, unsure if this was a trick, but the hunger in her daughter's eyes burned stronger than fear. The stranger broke the bread in half and placed it gently in the child's hand. The girl ate quickly, crumbs falling on her lap, tears running down her mother's cheeks. The man's voice was calm, deep, carrying no threat. "You should not be here alone." The mother lowered her head, whispering, "We have nowhere else." The stranger looked at the forgotten road, then back at the mother and child for the first time in years. She saw something more than pity in someone's eyes. She saw a choice, and that choice would change everything. The night grew colder, the wind sharper, but on the forgotten road, hope had taken its first breath again. The bread was rough and dry, but to the little girl it tasted sweeter than anything she had ever known. She clutched it with both hands, chewing fast, afraid someone might snatch it away. Her mother's eyes filled with tears as she watched, her chest tight with shame and relief. She had nothing to give, nothing to offer, and yet this human stranger had fed her child. The man crouched low, his rough voice breaking the silence. "Eat slowly, little one. It will last longer," he said. The child nodded weakly. Crumbs stuck to her lips, the mother whispered, her voice trembling. Why are you helping us?" No one had asked her that question before. No one had cared. She was used to slammed doors, angry stones, and curses in the streets. The human looked at her for a long time. His expression unreadable. Finally, he said, "Because you need it." His words were simple, but they shook her. It had been so long since someone had looked at her like she mattered. The wind howled down the forgotten road, carrying faint voices of distant colonists. The mother pulled her daughter close, whispering, "We should leave before they see us." Her legs wobbled, her body too weak to carry the girl again. The stranger noticed her struggle and held out his hand. "Come with me," he said firmly. The mother froze, unsure if this was another trap. She had learned that kindness often came with chains. "Why?" she asked, suspicion burning in her tired voice. The man glanced over his shoulder at the empty, hostile road. "Because you won't last another night here," he answered. His tone was final, not a question, not a request. The child tugged on her mother's sleeve, whispering softly, "Mama, please, let's go." Her little voice, weak but hopeful, broke the wall of fear inside the mother's heart. Slowly she nodded, and the stranger led them away. Each step felt heavy, as if the road itself was pulling her back, but she followed, clutching her child as if holding onto the last piece of her soul. They moved through the cracked streets until they reached an old mechanic's shop. Its windows were broken, its doors rusted, but inside was shelter. The man pushed aside a heavy metal sheet that blocked the entrance and guided them in. The air smelled of oil, dust, and old machines, but compared to the cold streets, it felt like a safe haven. He set down his bag on a broken table and pulled out a small flask. "Water," he said. Handing it to the girl, she drank quickly, water running down her chin. Her mother tried to stop her. Slowly, "You'll choke." But the child only laughed softly for the first time in weeks. That small sound made the mother's heart ache and heal at the same time. The man laid out an old blanket on the floor, gesturing for them to sit. "You can stay here tonight," he said, his tone quiet but firm. The mother shook her head. "We can't. It's too dangerous for you." He shrugged, sitting on the floor himself. "Danger already walks these streets. One more night won't change that." She lowered herself beside her daughter, pulling the child close under the blanket. Her eyes stayed fixed on the stranger, unsure if she could trust him, but his body language was calm, his gaze steady. He didn't look at her with hunger or disgust, only with a strange kind of tired compassion. Outside, faint footsteps echoed, voices carrying through the night air. "Did you hear? That alien woman is still alive," one man whispered. "They should finish her off. She's a curse," another growled. The mother froze in terror, clutching her child tighter. The stranger's jaw clenched, his eyes hardening as he listened. He reached quietly for a metal pipe lying near the wall, his grip firm. The voices faded as the patrol passed, leaving the street silent again. The mother's hands shook, her breath shallow. The man set the pipe back down and looked at her. "You're safe here," he said softly. Her eyes burned with tears. "Safe? No place is safe for us." The stranger leaned back against the wall, his expression unreadable. "Then stay until morning," he said, "and I'll prove you wrong." The child, already drifting to sleep with a full belly for the first time in days, whispered one last thing. Her voice was soft, half a dream. "Mama, he's kind, like family." The mother's heart trembled, her gaze shifting from her daughter to the human. For the first time, she wondered if hope could really exist again. Yet deep inside, fear still whispered. Hope often came before betrayal. As the night grew colder and darker, the little shop stood like a fragile island against the cruel city, and inside it 3 souls sat in silence, bound by hunger, fear, and a spark of something none of them dared name: trust. The night pressed heavy outside, the broken city breathing with whispers of fear. Inside the mechanic shop, shadows stretched long across the walls, broken machines standing like silent guards. The human stranger lit a small lantern, its glow soft and warm, chasing away the dark corners. The alien mother sat close to her daughter, who finally slept with a faint smile on her lips. Her belly no longer empty, for the first time in weeks, the child rested without shivering. The mother stroked her hair. Tears sliding down her dusty cheeks, she whispered to herself, "Thank you," though she was not sure if she spoke to the stranger, to the stars, or to fate itself. The man sat a short distance away, his back against the wall, watching them silently. He seemed like a statue carved by hardship. Strong shoulders, weary eyes, a face touched by both sorrow and strength. After a long silence, he spoke. "This place is old. Abandoned. No one comes here anymore. You'll be safe for now. The mother shook her head, her voice trembling. Safe. No place is safe for us. They will find us. They always do. The stranger leaned forward, his voice low, steady. Then we will make sure they don't. The word we startled her. No one had ever stood beside her. No one had ever claimed her fight as their own. Before she could answer, faint boots echoed outside, crunching against broken glass. Voices carried through the cracked walls, sharp and angry. Search every corner. The alien witch and her brat must be here somewhere. The mother's body went rigid, her heart hammering. She pressed her daughter close under the blanket. Trying to still her own shaking hands, the human's eyes narrowed. He stood silently and pulled aside a metal sheet leaning against the far wall. Behind it was a small crawlspace hidden among old tools and rusted parts. He gestured sharply. Go, hide in there. Quickly. The mother hesitated, fear choking her. What about you? His gaze didn't waver. I'll handle them. She crawled inside, pulling her daughter with her. The narrow space cold and dark. Through a thin crack, she could still see the stranger, standing tall near the entrance. Her breath caught as the door banged open. Soldiers storming in with weapons raised. Human, one barked. Have you seen an alien woman pass through? The stranger didn't flinch, didn't look toward the hiding spot. He folded his arms and replied calmly, I saw no one. Only rats and dust live here, the soldiers sneered, their eyes scanning the shadows. One kicked over a pile of junk. Another jabbed a weapon into the floorboards. The mother held her child's mouth shut, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. She prayed the child wouldn't cough, wouldn't whimper. The leader stepped closer to the man, eyes narrowed. You lie, he hissed. If we find her, you'll pay with your life. The stranger leaned down just enough to meet his eyes, his voice deep, steady. Search all you want. You'll find nothing but rust. The silence grew heavy, the sound of boots thudding, metal clanging. Finally, after tense minutes, the soldiers cursed and left, slamming the door behind them. The shop returned to silence, only the lantern flickering against the wall. The mother crawled out, trembling. Her child clinging to her arm, she whispered, They could have killed you. The man shrugged, his expression calm but his hands slightly shaking. They didn't, and that's enough. Her chest ached with confusion. Why would he risk himself for her and her daughter? She lowered her head, whispering, I don't understand you. He met her eyes, his gaze steady. You don't need to understand. Just survive. The girl, still half asleep, tugged at her mother's sleeve and looked at the man, her small voice cracked but hopeful. Are you my new father? The room went still, the words hanging in the air like a spark waiting to burn. The mother's face burned with shame. She tried to hush her daughter, but the man didn't laugh, didn't scold. He looked at the little girl, then at the mother, and after a long silence, he said only, Rest now. You'll need your strength. The mother's heart trembled. She didn't know if his silence was a promise or just kindness. But in that moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not safety, not yet, but a fragile thread of trust. Outside, the city remained cruel, hungry, ready to devour them. But inside the hidden shelter, a new bond had begun, and bonds once formed were harder to break than chains. The lantern flickered low, its weak flame painting long shadows across the broken walls. The night outside was silent, but the silence felt heavy, dangerous. The alien mother lay awake, holding her daughter close, her ears straining for every sound beyond the cracked windows. The stranger sat a few steps away, his back against the cold wall, his face hidden in dim light. The little girl stirred, her small hand tugging at her mother's sleeve. Mama, she whispered softly, are we safe now? The mother brushed dust from her daughter's hair, forcing a smile she did not feel. For now, little one, rest, she murmured. But the child's wide eyes refused to close. They kept darting to the stranger who sat in silence. After a long moment, the girl asked in a small, trembling voice, Is he my new father? The words fell into the room like stones dropped into still water. The mother froze, her breath catching, shame and fear twisting her chest. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She wanted to silence her daughter, but the question had already been spoken. The stranger slowly turned his head, his eyes meeting the child's innocent gaze. For a moment, his face remained unreadable. Hard like stone, the mother whispered quickly. No, don't say such things. Her voice cracked. We cannot ask for more than his kindness." But the little girl's eyes filled with tears. She pressed closer to her mother, whispering, "I just want someone who won't leave us." The silence stretched, thick with tension. The stranger's gaze softened only slightly as he looked at the fragile child in her mother's arms. He did not answer her question, but his hand reached into his bag. Pulling out a small piece of cloth, he placed it gently on the floor near them. "Use this as a pillow. She'll sleep better," he said quietly. It was not an answer, but it was something. The mother lowered her head, her heart torn between gratitude and fear. Every kindness she received always had a cost in the past. But this man, this human stranger, asked for nothing. That was what frightened her most, because she didn't understand why. The girl finally drifted to sleep, her small fingers clutching the cloth like a treasure. The mother watched her breathing soften, her chest rising and falling. Her eyes then lifted to the stranger, her voice breaking in a whisper. "She has no father. They all left us. Even my own people, they abandoned us." Her words cracked like dry earth, heavy with sorrow. The man didn't move, didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was low, steady, but filled with something unspoken. "Then maybe your people were blind." The mother looked at him, startled. He added, "Anyone who could throw away their own blood doesn't deserve to call themselves family." Her throat tightened, her hands shaking. No one had ever defended her. No one had ever spoken against her people for what they had done. For a moment she felt warmth inside her chest, a dangerous warmth she feared to trust. Suddenly, outside the shop, boots thundered against the road again. Torches flickered through the cracks in the broken wall. Voices loud and angry. "They're close, I can smell the wretch's trail," one soldier snarled. The mother's blood ran cold, her arms tightening around her child. The stranger rose silently, his eyes sharp, his body tense like a predator waiting to strike. He whispered quickly, "Stay low, don't move." He gripped the same rusted metal pipe, his knuckles white. The mother's breath came fast, her heart racing. Through the crack she saw shadows move across the street. Closer and closer. The soldiers stopped in front of the shop, their voices carrying inside. "Check here," one barked. "She won't get far." The mother almost cried out, but the stranger's steady gaze silenced her. He pressed a finger to his lips, his eyes telling her what words could not. "Trust me." The door rattled as someone tried to push it open. The girl whimpered in her sleep, and the mother pressed a trembling hand over her mouth. Her heart hammered so loud she was sure the soldiers could hear it. But then, footsteps moved away, the voices fading slowly. "They'll die soon enough on their own," one soldier spat, before the group marched down the street. The mother let out a shaky breath, her whole body collapsing with relief. The stranger lowered the pipe, his muscles finally relaxing. He looked at her, his voice calm but firm. "They won't stop. If you stay here, they'll find you." The mother's lips trembled. "Then what can we do?" The stranger met her eyes with quiet resolve. "Tomorrow I'll take you away from here, somewhere safer, far from these streets." Her heart thudded, torn between fear and hope. Could she trust him? Could she risk everything for a man she barely knew? The little girl stirred again, whispering, half asleep, "Don't leave us, please." And in that moment, the mother knew. Whether she trusted him or not, her child already had. The lantern flickered once more, and in its dim light, the stranger's eyes burned with silent promise, a promise that would soon be tested, for danger was already closing in. The morning came gray and cold, the city drowned in fog. The alien mother woke to the sound of boots far away, echoing down the empty streets. Her daughter still slept against her chest, warm beneath the old blanket, but the stranger was already awake, standing near the broken window, his eyes sharp, watching the fog. "They're still searching," he muttered, his voice low. The mother's heart sank. Her body stiff with fear, she pulled her child closer, whispering, "Will they never stop?" The stranger turned, his jaw tight. "Not until you're gone from here." He quickly packed his bag, sliding a few tools and food scraps inside. Then he looked at the mother. "We leave now." She hesitated, her voice trembling. "But where can we go?" "Every road leads back to them." The man met her eyes, firm, steady. "Not every road." He pushed aside another sheet of metal, revealing a narrow hole in the floor. Beneath it lay a dark tunnel, damp and cold. The mother gasped, fear in her voice. "What is that?" "The old sewer lines," he answered, "forgotten like this city." "They'll get us out." The girl stirred awake, rubbing her eyes when she saw the tunnel. She clung to her mother's arm. "It's scary." "Mama." The man knelt beside her, his voice calm. "It's dark, yes, but safe." "Safer than the soldiers." The girl hesitated. But when her mother nodded, she took the man's rough hand. For the first time, she didn't pull away. They climbed down into the tunnel, the air damp and heavy, the smell of rust and water filling their lungs. The stranger lifted the child onto his shoulder, carrying her when her small legs grew tired. The mother followed close behind, her eyes darting through the shadows, every sound echoing like danger. For hours they moved, their steps splashing softly through shallow water. The girl whispered, "It's like the belly of a beast," and her mother hushed her quickly. But the man only smiled faintly. "Then let's hope this beast carries us far." At last, they reached a ladder leading up to a rusted grate. The man climbed first, lifting the girl through, then helping the mother up. They emerged into a forgotten courtyard on the edge of the colony. For a moment, the sky above them seemed brighter, hope rising like the sun, but hope shattered in an instant. A shout rang out across the courtyard. "There they are!" Soldiers poured from the shadows, weapons raised. The mother froze, terror gripping her. The girl screamed, clutching the stranger's arm. The man grabbed both mother and child, pulling them into a run. "Move!" he barked, leading them through narrow alleys. Their feet pounded against broken stone, hearts racing, lungs burning. The mother stumbled, but he pulled her up, refusing to let her fall behind them. Boots thundered. Voices shouted. Weapons fired. Dust exploded around them as shots struck the walls. The little girl cried out, but the man held her tight. He turned sharply into another street, pushing aside crates and debris to block the path behind. "Faster," he urged, though his own breath came heavy. The mother's legs ached, her vision blurred, but she forced herself to keep going. She knew if she stopped, her child's life would end here. They reached a broken bridge, the ground crumbling into a river of black water below. The mother stopped, panic flooding her. "We can't cross this." The man didn't hesitate. He looked at her with steel in his eyes. "You trust me?" She hesitated, trembling, then nodded once. He lifted the girl, jumping across the gap with a heavy grunt, landing hard but safe. Then he reached back, stretching his hand to the mother. "Jump!" he shouted. Her knees shook. But with one desperate cry, she leapt. His hand caught hers, pulling her onto solid ground just as soldiers reached the bridge. The soldiers cursed, shouting threats as the three of them disappeared into another alley. Their anger echoed, but they did not dare risk the broken bridge, for now the family had escaped breathless. The mother collapsed against the wall, her daughter clinging to her chest. The stranger stood over them, scanning the streets, his pipe still gripped in one hand. The girl looked up at him with wide, fearful eyes. "Will they keep chasing us?" The man's face hardened, his voice quiet but certain. "Yes," he said, "and next time we'll have to stand our ground." The mother shivered at his words. She had always known running would never be enough, but now, with her daughter in her arms and this human stranger standing guard before them, for the first time she believed that maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. The chase was not over, it had only just begun, and the city's dark heart was not ready to let them go. The sun had fallen behind the ruined towers, leaving the streets bathed in a dull red glow. The mother clutched her daughter tightly, her legs weak from the endless run. The stranger led them through the twisted alleys, his sharp eyes scanning every corner. But he knew the truth. Running would not last forever. The soldiers were closing in, their voices already echoing down the streets. "They're near," the mother whispered, fear trembling in her voice. The little girl buried her face in her mother's chest, whispering, "I'm scared, Mama." The man's jaw tightened, his voice low but steady. "Fear keeps you alive. But tonight we need more than fear." They turned a corner and froze. Ahead, a line of soldiers blocked the road. Weapons raised, faces hard and merciless behind them. More soldiers spilled into the alley, their boots thundering on stone. The mother's heart sank, her knees buckling. They were surrounded, trapped, no way forward, no way back. The girl whimpered, "Mama, what will happen to us?" The mother's arms trembled as she pulled her daughter close, her voice breaking, "I don't know, my child." But the stranger stepped forward, placing himself between the soldiers and the trembling family. He stood tall, pipe clenched in his hand, his shoulders squared, his voice cut through the tension, firm and unyielding. "If you want them, you'll have to go through me." The soldiers laughed, mocking. A human? Standing for her? She's filth not worth saving, one sneered. Another spat on the ground. Step aside, stranger. And maybe we'll let you live. But the man didn't move. Didn't blink. He planted his feet in the cracked ground like roots of iron. The mother gasped, her voice desperate. No. You'll die. Don't do this for us. But he didn't turn, didn't waver. He whispered back without looking at her. Every life has a price. Tonight, mine buys yours. The leader of the soldiers stepped forward, his weapon gleaming. You cannot win, he said coldly. The stranger's eyes burned with defiance. I don't need to win. Only to stand, the soldiers lunged forward. The stranger swung the pipe with brutal force. Striking the first soldier down, chaos exploded in the alley, metal clashing, boots thundering, shouts echoing off the broken walls. The mother screamed, shielding her child behind a pile of crates. She could only watch as the man fought like a storm. Every strike fueled by raw willpower. One soldier struck his side, blood staining his shirt. But he did not fall, he growled, his arm swinging again, knocking another enemy back. The girl cried out, Mama, he'll die. Tears streamed down the mother's face, her heart breaking. But something inside her snapped. She couldn't let him fight alone. She grabbed a broken piece of wood from the ground, her hands shaking when a soldier came too close. She struck with all her strength. Screaming, the soldier stumbled back, stunned by the desperate blow. The stranger's eyes flicked toward her for just a second, and in them was something powerful, respect. The battle raged, the soldiers pressing harder, but every time one advanced, the man struck them back, his body battered yet unbroken. The mother fought beside him, clumsy but fierce, her daughter's terrified cries driving her on. At last, the remaining soldiers hesitated, their leader snarling, This isn't over. She will die and you with her. He raised his weapon. But the stranger stepped forward, blood dripping down his arm, his voice thundered like iron. Then come and try. The soldiers faltered, their courage breaking against his unyielding stance. One by one they backed away. Dragging their wounded with them, the alley fell silent. Only the harsh breaths of the stranger and the sobs of the mother and child filling the air. The stranger dropped the pipe with a heavy clang, his knees trembling. The mother rushed to him, catching his arm before he collapsed, her voice shook. Why? Why would you risk everything for us? He looked at her, pain etched in his face, but his words were clear. Because no one else did. The little girl crawled forward, wrapping her small arms around his leg. Her tearful voice whispered, You didn't leave us. You're not like them. The man placed a hand gently on her head. His bloodied fingers trembling, he whispered almost to himself, Not anymore. The mother stared at him, her heart heavy with gratitude and fear. She knew the soldiers would return, stronger, angrier. But for tonight they had survived. For tonight, the stranger had stood against the darkness, and in that stand something unbreakable had begun. The night was long, filled with fear and pain. The stranger sat against the wall, his shirt torn, his side bleeding. The mother tore strips from her own clothes to wrap the wound, her hands trembling. You should rest, she whispered, her voice breaking, but the man only shook his head, his eyes fixed on the dark streets. They will come again, he muttered. Soldiers never forget. The little girl pressed close to him, her tiny fingers holding his hand. You won't leave us, right? She asked, her eyes wide, searching. For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy and fragile. The stranger finally spoke, his voice low but steady. No, I won't leave. The mother's heart clenched. She looked at him, unsure whether to believe. Her people had left her, her kin had abandoned her, and yet this man, a human stranger, had stayed. Why? She could not understand, but she wanted to believe. As the first light of dawn crept over the ruins, the man rose slowly, his body weak but his spirit strong. We can't stay here, he said. They'll search this place by noon. He lifted his bag, motioning for them to follow. The mother carried her daughter. Though her arms shook from exhaustion, step by step they walked through the broken city, past burned houses, past empty shops, past roads filled with silence. Finally, they reached the edge of the colony. Beyond the wall stretched a valley, quiet and untouched. The rising sun painted the hills gold, mist curling like silver threads for the first time in years. The mother felt air that was not filled with smoke and hate. Her daughter gasped, pointing with wide eyes, Mama, look! Flowers. Small wild blooms pushed through the cracks in stone, fragile but alive. The stranger led them down into the valley. They found a small stream, clear water rushing gently over stones. The mother knelt, letting her daughter drink. Her own hands shook as she cupped water to her lips. It was the sweetest thing she had ever tasted. She closed her eyes, whispering, "We're still alive. We're still here." The stranger dropped his bag beside the stream, pulling out bread and dried fruit. He handed it to the girl, who laughed with delight. Her mother watched with tears in her eyes. Every smile on her daughter's face felt like a gift she no longer thought possible. When they had eaten, the mother turned to him, her voice soft, almost breaking. "You could have left us. Why didn't you?" The man stared at the stream, his face shadowed. Finally, he said, "I've lost people too. I know what it feels like to have no one." His eyes lifted to meet hers, steady and unflinching. "I couldn't watch it happen to you." Her breath caught, her heart heavy with unspoken words. For the first time, she felt something more than fear. She felt hope, fragile and dangerous, but real. The little girl ran to him, her laughter echoing across the valley. She tugged at his sleeve. "Will you stay with us forever?" The man froze, the question hanging in the air. He looked at the mother, who lowered her eyes, afraid of his answer. But his voice came firm, quiet, carrying the weight of a promise. "Yes. As long as I breathe, you're not alone anymore." The mother's tears spilled freely. She pulled her daughter close, then looked at the man with trembling lips. "You've given us more than food, more than safety. You've given us a future." Her daughter hugged him tightly, whispering, "You're our family now." The stranger, once just a lonely shadow walking broken streets, had become something more, a shield, a father, a hope reborn in the ruins as the sun rose higher, casting light across the valley. The three of them sat together by the stream. No longer strangers, no longer abandoned, but a family, bound not by blood, but by choice, by courage, by love. The forgotten road was behind them. The dark city still hunted them. But the dawn had come, and with it a promise that even in the cruelest of worlds, kindness could spark a new beginning. The mother closed her eyes, whispering into the morning air, "Thank you. Thank you for not leaving us." The man only nodded, his gaze on the horizon, for he knew this was not the end of danger, but it was the beginning of something greater, the beginning of hope,